Hi everyone. Good afternoon. You guys had a good day? Yeah? Great. Are you all inspired and going out to go take photos? Because I know Elia is waking up at 5 in the morning to start his workshop. 5, right? Yay! So again, thank you guys for spending your weekend or part of your weekend with us. It's been an amazing day for us. The team works for a few months. Actually, we'll start working on the next event, at the end of this event. So there's a lot of effort that goes behind it, and they've done an amazing job. I'm just here to introduce Elliot, but also to tell you guys not just to connect with us on a regular basis and to go take pictures. But then we have a lot of our exhibition openings. We have a lot of talks and events. So please, follow us on whatever social media you guys like. We're on all of them. We even got on Snapchat yesterday, yay! Although it's really annoying to work. Please come into a lot of the things that we do, and most of the things that we do are free. And we use the money that we make selling workshops to be able to fund those things, so that people can, get better and develop themselves as better photographers. So. Again, thank you, and we hope to see you not just at the event, but throughout the year, and see you again next year, of course. Just a reminder, so after this session, we'll be ending it. If you if you'd like, please join us at the Story Rooftop Lounge, which is at the Holiday Inn Express, which is at the end of the street. It's like a 5-minute walk where you can take your car there. And we'll be there, the instructors will be there, so it'll be a great chance for you guys to talk some more to them and get some selfies maybe of them. Please join us. And then the rest of the week we have a lot of other events, and there's a lot of special events happening in this auditorium. They're free, you just have to sign up on the website. And then there's a shootout which also happens here, and it's going to be as busy, and so make sure that you register, because we'll be very strict about the caps. And that brings me to introducing Elia. Elia is somebody I heard about, I saw his work. His work is of course stunning, but he also has a really interesting story. He's a really, really good guy, and he really makes the effort. He makes the effort to impart all his knowledge, and he is very open about what he does. And I've seen some of the feedback that students have received, he runs these amazing photo tours. We're very pleased to have Elia on board, and I think you guys are going to have a great session. I bet you all of your images when you come back from your next travel trip are going to be better, thanks to some of what you learned here today. So with that, please join me in welcoming Elia Lapardi.
Thank you, everybody. So everybody can hear me, right? All right, so before I get started, really important question. Who wants to swap? Because these couches look really comfy on this thing. Okay. So that was a wonderful introduction. So the first thing I'd like to say is thank you all for being here. Thank you to Mo and Hala for putting on this event, for putting on PPP every year and making this the epicenter of the photography world in the Middle East. It's very inspiring. It's my first time here, so I'm very excited to be here today, and I want to thank them for inviting me too, because it gives me a chance to connect with all of you guys. So the first question that I get before anything else is, how the heck do you pronounce your name? And it's kind of fun because people email me, I don't know what to call you, is it Elia, they don't know. I go by Elia, that's how I grew up. But I travel all over the world, so however you pronounce your vowels, you call me like Elia, Elia, Eli, whatever you want. Whatever you call me behind my back, that's fine too. Just please keep me behind my back. Anyway, as Mo kind of introduced, I'm a travel photographer, but I consider myself a world travel photographer. So as long as this clicker works, oh good, presentation's off to a good start. Since 2009, I've actually traveled more than 55 countries, and a while ago I actually broke the 1,000,000-mile mark, which at the time I thought was really exciting. I wasn't sure if I should celebrate or get an MRI. I wasn't really sure. But as you can see, I actually get around the globe pretty much. This is actually kind of an outdated map. I had a presentation, I had some people from Perth, which is the west part of Australia, and they were really offended. And I said, no guys, I promise, I've been to Perth. I just haven't figured out how to fix my map in Google yet. I promise I'll add you later. Now, in 2012, my wife and I did something that at the time seemed pretty crazy. And that was sell everything and become 100% location independent. Now, at the time in 2012, the term location independent really didn't exist. It was something we invented, and we invented it because it sounded better than telling our parents we were becoming homeless. to shock my mom, I really did. I said, and my wife and I, we thought, how are we going to present this to our parents? And I said, look, Mom, we're traveling a lot. We're gonna condense our lives together in suitcases, and we're going to become location independent, traveling the world full time. And she said, cool. I was like, wow, I probably shouldn't have given it that much thought. But we basically condensed everything down. Now it's really interesting, up there on the side, if you guys, technical crew could dim the lights a little bit too, that would be good so we can see the screen better. Up there in the upper left corner is another outdated picture, but basically, essentially, everything that we have left fits in those bags. So my wife and I travel, we've been on the road nearly 4 years now without a home base. Well, it's really interesting, down at the bottom here you see that we travel with a lot of gear. You can kind of see some think tank camera rollers. Here there are two, call those his and hers. I'll give you one guess which one's mine. You're right, it's the pink one. Above that is a funny story, I like to tell this. So we couldn't get rid of everything. By the time you get rid of all of your stuff, you think, I thought it was easy, I didn't think it was sentimental. But by the time I got down to that last 5%, those family heirlooms, those photos, hard drives, what am I going to do? And my comic book collection, I actually have a huge comic book collection. Someday these are going to be valuable, right? What do I do with these? We ended up with a 5-foot by 5-foot storage unit that's right there to the right. Actually, that little blue door is the closest thing we have to a home in Florida. And we also used to collect things when we traveled. We'd like to bring things back from Thailand, like a Turkish lantern, something, to remind us of the trip. We realized everything comes with us. We can't travel with anything unless we have to take it with us. So we decided to collect our boarding passes. And after a couple of years, we decided to see how many boarding passes on our flights we collected, and we laid them all out. I am born an American. My family's Italian, so I like to say I'm born an American Italian by heart and soul. But when I go back to the United States, I like to mess with customs as much as possible and write as many countries as I can on the form. And one of these days, I'm thinking they're not going to let me back into my own country, but so far I've been pretty lucky and it's gotten easier. Usually they're just like, wow, that's amazing, you're traveling so much, congratulations. People are really friendly when you're traveling. There aren't that many horror stories to tell. Everything, all of this that I'm about to show you guys, every single bit, whether it's the post-processing or it's anything that sticks out to you, the reason that happened is because of what is up there in the upper right corner. That is the single most important tool that I have at my disposal. It makes 2 cups of espresso. I can plug it into any current, whether it's 100 in Japan or 220 here in Europe. Seriously, I had it right before I came here. It's amazing. I recommend it to everybody. That is the reason I exist. Forget all the other stuff. Presentation over. I'm also a Fujifilm Global Ambassador and ex-photographer. Really happy as a traveler because they make really good products. And I want to mention that to you guys today because the X Pro 2 just came out, and for anybody taking my workshops, I'm going to be using the X Pro 2. And I was just told that they have a deal, so if you pre-order it, you get a free hand grip or something like that, which I actually use on mine, are the hand grips. They're really cool. So that was I'm not a product photographer, so that was the best I could do. I found a little aluminum brush table, and I was like, sweet, it's got reflection. For the past series of years, I've had the wonderful experience of traveling around different places, taking photos, working on different projects, meeting a bunch of amazing people, and just having a great time. And it was through all these stories that I had, that I was able to build my social media influence. So some of you guys have just met me and you think I'm the annoying guy with long hair. Some of you guys follow me on social media on Instagram, Facebook. And I basically got on Google Plus from the start, Facebook when it turned into a subscriber program, and I built a pretty big following, and I'm nearly 3 million people now on all the networks combined. And the reason was because of all these stories. All I was doing was talking about what I was doing, being inspiring, talking about the photos I was taking, the people I was meeting, the events we were putting together, and just sharing about it online. So it gave me a great platform to be able to share. And I owe a lot of my success to online social media, I hate the term influencers, but basically it's really a key to how I become successful. And it was all based on the stories. And the travel knowledge turned into being able to run photo tours. My company now that's been open for 2 years, Dream Photo Tours. We take people to some of the most beautiful locations in the world. And you can see, my wife is there in the white, there in the middle on the top in Iceland. She makes everybody do great poses. I'm not a people photographer, but when we were in Italy on the bottom, I made everybody toast the wine. So you see, temperature 0 degrees in Iceland, and then nice and warm in Tuscany. But we get to go some really cool places, and it's really fun. So I consider it a really big perk. Now, all that stuff, that just sort of introduces who I am and what I've been doing for the last few years. Now, I haven't been a photographer for long, believe it or not. Before I got into photography, I was an animator. I did motion design, visual effects, motion graphics. I was in education for 4 years. I've known Photoshop for a long time. So when I decided that I wanted to be a travel photographer, the first thing that I wanted to do was choose the strongest subjects in travel photography, and I wanted to concentrate on locations. So think about it. If you went to Rome, like when I say Rome, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
The dome.
Right. That was an easy one. But it doesn't just go from there. So I found, okay, I gotta get these great shots of the Coliseum. I learned I had to get up really early, because how many of you guys have visited the Coliseum? It's always this empty, right? Like there's never anybody there. There's nobody in a gladiator outfit trying to take selfies with you. So I learned I had to get up really early to get these shots and find the right lighting that we're going to talk about. But once I started finding the epicenters, I started expanding. So you think Colosseum, then you think the Imperial Forum. From the Imperial Forum, I spent more time in Rome, and I discovered under the bridges of Rome that I really love. You have Ponte St. Angelo, which is the Bridge of Angels, Castle St. Angelo, and then you can actually see the Vatican under the bridge in the back. You go one bridge over to Ponte Umberto, you get the most beautiful sunset view in all of Rome. So Rome's pretty easy, it's a small city. You know, these get a little bit more difficult as they go. But what do you think about with Paris? The tower, yeah, the Eiffel Tower. Paris was one of the last, I visited at first time in 2013, because I was like, I really don't want to photograph the tower, but I knew I had to. So I started from a distance. And I decided I was going to work my way around to photographing the Eiffel Tower. So I started with the Montparnasse Tower, and ended up, on the first day, very lucky with a beautiful view. And from there, what I like to do in cities like this that have epic views, it gives you a lay of the city. So the first night I actually went up here and I learned sort of the city, like from above. I could see all the arches, I could see the streets, and I understood where I was, and I got a really cool shot. And from there, I just did a little bit more planning. Like, how can I combine old Paris and new Paris? And if you go up to the Notre Dame Tower, during summertime, they let you stay up until about midnight. There's a lot of tripods up there, so I had a small little tabletop tripod, and I kind of slid it through the wires there, and set it up, and the guy came by and he said, no. And I said, okay, and I took it away, he walked away, I put it back. My friend, who was also French, who actually might be in the audience, he'll laugh for a second, he said, I don't know you, this is going to be a problem, and I said, look, here's what's going to happen, I want a blue-hour shot. It's going to require different focal lengths. I have to have 2 focus points, one on the guy, one on the background, right? I can't do this handheld. So if I don't try with the tripod, I'm not going to get it. If he kicks me out, I'm not going to get it. Either way, I'm not going to get it, but here's a chance. And the guy was so busy, he never came back, and I was able to get the shot. So if you want this shot, go in the summertime. It's actually really cool. Just don't tell him I sang yeah. So anyway, I'm actually working around Paris. I just start, going to these different locations. And again, how many of you guys have visited the Louvre? It's always this empty, right? I wanted to do sunset because I got the color behind the sky. I spent 6 hours in one place, photographing frame after frame after frame after frame. Finally, it cleared out, and this woman started doing selfies for 30 minutes. And I'm like, it got to the point where then she had her mom try, and she'd look, and even her mom was getting irritated, like, isn't this good enough? Finally, I was able to piece together from different pieces of this. It took hours to piece it all together and remove the people. So this one that you saw in Rome was easy, right? I was just there. I was the only one there in the morning, and it was raining, so nobody was there. But this one took a little bit of work. So I started to discover that I like to have nobody in my scene. A lot of people like to have, sometimes sense of scale works, and you can see that. I'll show you guys that too. But basically the idea is, I started traveling and I started going to these places, and I get there and there were thousands of people, and then I just didn't want to be there. But when I woke up in the morning, and I was there by myself, I had my own personal experience with this place. Got a great photo, had a good feeling, good emotion. And in my photography, I want people to feel like they're stepping into a scene by themselves. Tourists don't dress as like they used to 20 years ago. Now it's, Mickey Mouse caps and Hello Kitty t-shirts. Like we don't have, if you're shooting gondola in Venice, it's iPads. It doesn't look classic anymore. So this is the feeling. So we've established that Rome and Paris are very iconic. But what about Iceland? Well, wait, what does Iceland have? Iceland has landscape. So one thing Iceland has is waterfalls. First trip to Iceland, I stood behind this waterfall for about 4 hours. It was cold. I'm originally from South Florida, from the Florida Keys, so I've had to learn to acclimate and get the right layers. But it's beautiful, and there's so many beautiful waterfalls in Iceland. I mean, they're just everywhere. You actually get to the point after a week, if you come on a dream photo tour, you're going to be like, I love waterfalls, but you know what? That's enough. I love the Northern Lights are amazing, but okay. I'm serious. People get that way. But it also has ice caves. And this is something you can only see in the wintertime. So between maybe December and March before it starts to melt. Now this is where, this is the one rare moment that I have sense of scale. That's actually me doing my own selfie. Because I took a shot of the cave and I couldn't tell how big it was. But I just kept moving away. In Iceland, I had to think about, if I wanted iconic photography from Iceland, I mean, Rome, cities like Paris, New York, we have iconic buildings. But these things that you've seen in Iceland, that's for Iceland. That's Iceland's Eiffel Tower. You know, Sara Lando waterfall is the Colosseum. You know, these have become the icons. So first it's all about choosing the right subjects. Then, for me, it was about choosing the right moments in time. Because that's what everything really comes down to. So the first step one, pick a beautiful place. I know, horrible, right? Nobody would ever want to photograph that. And once you find a beautiful place, just wait. So what I usually do, and what I started doing years ago, is I set up at least a couple hours earlier than I intended to shoot. And I'd watch the light change and I'd shoot through it because I wasn't sure what the lighting, the time I was learning, I wasn't sure what best lighting scenario was going to work. But watch this, like in the course of maybe an hour and a half, watch as this starts to transform. So the natural light from the sun behind it stops to illuminate. And there's a point during sunset where it kind of gets flat, and then as soon as the lights start to turn on the city, we start to get something else that happens, something else that's actually quite beautiful. And this is what we're going to start explaining with the different times of day. What has happened here is you've seen a transition of natural light into a blend of ambient natural light and artificial light, and that's part of what I'm going to explain today. Once I figured this out, I said, wow, wait, here's some options. You know, I had some options. Oops, I had more frames too. That's actually a late blue hour. So the best times to shoot for photography. Now this is fun. Well, it depends whether it's sunrise or a sunset, but for the most part, are golden hours, sunrises and sunsets, blue hours, twilight and night. Now you guys are going to hear me say the word blue hour, the words blue hour, more than I say twilight. Because blue hour is a time of day for photography, and twilight is a vampire movie. So I do not want you guys to confuse the two together. But let's start, because there's a lot of confusion sometimes between golden hour and sunrise and sunset. This is very important in photography, you have to understand this. So a golden hour is the brief moment before the sun dips below the horizon for a sunset, or the brief moment after the sun rises. So the same shot that we just saw, this is Sara Lando. I've said it a million times and screwed it up a million more. We have light, golden light streaming in from the left side and illuminating not only the water, but the back of the waterfall, causing all these beautiful colors. What would happen if the sun was down, it already set? You need no light. It would be a different shot, a different scene altogether. So these are the golden hours. This is the first 90 seconds of the morning in Valençol in southern France in July. So that's when you get the lavender blooms in Valençol. 90 seconds before this, there was no light on. It drove me crazy. I saw these photos of these beautiful skies with no light in the foreground. I'm not a big fan of that. I wanted light. You know, I wanted light in the foreground, light on just the top of the rose to get this nice purple to pink. And even with the projection color quality, you can still see that you have that. But that's a golden morning. First 90 seconds. And I tell you what, after we saw the first 90 seconds, it was time to go have breakfast. Like, 2 minutes later, it wasn't good enough. Kind of spoiled us, very early mornings. Golden hours turn into golden mornings. Well, there's a lot of times when you have to understand first, okay, I got that first 90 seconds, right? But what do I want for this shot? In this case, I wanted the sun to come up high enough to where it illuminated the bamboo forest from behind, giving it a warmth, coming through towards the viewer. How many people have been here? Okay, good, less people. I was just as busy as in other places, and taxis drive up. So by about 9 o'clock, you're done, so you have to wait until you can get the shot with nobody in it. But I wanted this warm light, so this is about an hour and a half after sunrise to get that warm light. And it gets a little bit more extreme after that. This is about 2 hours after sunrise. But it was driving me crazy because an hour before Mount Fuji was lit up, there was some light on the Trader Pagoda, but there was no light on the cherry blossoms. And I wanted full light. So I had to wait for that light. Wait for that moment, and I had to decide that's when I need to kill it. That's done. Everything's lit, illuminated, and good. And that's the golden hours. They take time. Like, you have to understand the timing. The sunrises and sunset, you have colors and drama.